Hi guys, this is Miss Meyer with a new episode of the Miss Meyer Show. I am still a little ill, as you can hear. My throat is kind of still cracky and scratchy, whatever. So we're just gonna go with it. And if you have trouble understanding anything that I say, just ask me in class, and I will repeat it or rewind the video, make it the video louder or whatever. Or you can watch. No, I'm sorry. Or you could look at your handy dandy study guide. That'll work too. Anything of those would be fine. Okay, so let's get started. Today, what we're going to talk about, we're going through Chapter 9, Part 2, and we're going to talk about Huey Long. So we're going to go from pages 331 to page 340. So we're going to talk all about him because he is obviously one of the most famous governors in all of Louisiana history. One of the people have said, you know, in Washington, they have something called Statuary Hall that's in the Capitol building, and there's statues from every state. Now, every state gets to pick two, and for somewhere around there, we have picked the only one that I saw from Louisiana was Huey Long. He is our representative, Louisiana's representative in Statuary Hall in Congress. And so a lot of people from Louisiana, and even just all over, think like, why would they pick Huey Long? Well, Huey Long was such a huge figure in Louisiana. He probably, would he have lived, if he lived, because he did die before he could run for president, there's a really good chance that he would have won over FDR. And even FDR was extremely scared about Huey Long because he had all of these ideas that were making him really popular. Where Roosevelt was kind of slipping a little bit with the people, Long was doing a really good job, and he had a lot of people that were saying, hey, you know, this guy knows what he's talking about. But Huey Long was assassinated before that could happen. He could actually run for president. Therefore, we never will know. But anyway, however, he is our representative in Statuary Hall. So we're going to talk about, you know, your thoughts if we should keep him there. Could we? Because we can, as the state of Louisiana, decide that we want to change. We want a different person to represent us or something. I say Ruby Bridges. I'm all for her. But, you know, some people disagree or whatever, and that's, you know, that's life, that's what it is. But I want you guys to make that decision. We'll be doing that in class. So let's start with Huey Long. Okay, so this is a picture of Huey Long. Now, Huey Long, he was a politician, but he was a very strategic politician. There's a way, like, you either love Huey Long, or when you were around, when you lived this time, or you hated Huey Long, okay? There was no in between. Now, Huey Long, to many people, was their savior, or he was a villain. That's how he was. Everything that he did was calculated. Everything that he said was calculated. Every move he made was calculated. When Huey Long was a little boy, his dream was to become a president of the United States. He really was. And I'm not telling you this man had a goal and he was going, you know, go boom, boom, boom. He had a plan. He wasn't like, you know, what am I going to do with my life? I don't know, man. Like, he knew. So he was born in Winfield Parish, which I don't know what's the nearest parish to Winfield? I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry. But anyway, and so what he had said, he had concocted this whole story to make him popular, or, you know, more likable by the poor people in Louisiana. So because his whole demographic on how he was planning to get elected to the presidency was to get the votes of the poor people of Louisiana, which was, you know, a good old time to do it because we were in the middle of a depression and we were a poor state to begin with. So when the depression hit, we were even in worse situation than the other states, because we were already initially very poor. So when Huey Long decided, hey, I'm going to go run for governor, or, you know, he started his plan for the governorship, he concocted this backstory, okay, because he wanted people's sympathy vote. He was playing on that. Remember when we talked about propaganda and how, I'm going to get as close as I can to the microphone so that You can hear me better because I can't feel my voice cracking. So remember when we looked at the political campaign ads for President Trump and Secretary Clinton? You know how they had used things to get people to vote for them and to be on their side, and they used emotions. You know, they used fear, or they used sympathy, or all those other kind of things. Well, this is nothing new. They've been doing this forever, and Huey Long was like the king of this. So he created this whole backstory that he was raised or born in this little poor man's farmhouse in Winfield Parish, and you know, he grew up having to chop wood and go take care of the farm. So he did all of these things. You know, he said that he had grown up, you know, and so that way he could relate to his people, or the people that he wanted to vote. He wanted to relate to them. So that's just not true, though. Huey Long was born into a wealthy middle-class family. His family had money. I mean, not tons of money, but they had enough, you know, to get by and to do things. And Huey never wanted for anything. He went to nice schools. He always had clothes. He did not have to go chop wood. And he didn't take care of farm animals, as far as I know, but I highly doubt that. Okay, but this was all part of Huey's plan. Huey was very singular-minded. He knew that he wanted to be president, and he knew what he had to do to get to that point. So, you know, that was always his very end goal, was the presidency. So when but he was always kind of controversial, always, even as a young kid. So he got expelled from school, okay? He got expelled from school. He didn't even finish because he was circulating this position, or kind of speaking out and protesting, and he eventually got thrown out. So when he was thrown out of school, he decided to become a traveling salesman. He went all over Louisiana trying to sell something. I don't know what it was he was trying to sell. Does it say in here? No. Well, at least it didn't, because I was looking at it really quickly. Yeah, I don't know what he was trying to sell. It could be anything. Yeah, but realize that the time period, you know, is something during that time period. It's probably like, I don't know, books or containers, or, I don't know, chocolate. I don't know. Because this is in the early 30s. So in Huey Long, he started going around and selling stuff. And when he did that, he met this lovely young lady. And her name was, I can't remember her name. I don't remember her name. So once he was established, you know, and he was doing all his traveling sales, whatever job, he met his wife, and they got married, and she started working. And the reason she did that, because, you know, this is the 30s, women aren't working, you know, at this time, was because she wanted to pay for Huey's tuition so that he could go to Tulane and study law. I'm just gonna fix this. Oh, that's me. Okay. There we go. Sorry. There we go. So he wanted to go to Tulane to study law. Now, when he went to Tulane, he was just as determined as he was before, you know, really. And so he went to school for 1 year at Tulane. He studied law for 1 year. And he was such a good orator. Like, he was good at speaking, was good at getting people to do what he wanted them to do. He convinced the administration at Tulane to, after 1 year, allow him to take the bar exam, so that he wouldn't even have to go to school for the rest of the years. He would just take the bar exam, and if he passed it, he became a lawyer, and he wouldn't have to go, you know, continue schooling any longer. So the board somehow was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, which in all actuality, I mean, if you could pass the bar, then hey, you know, you must know your stuff. But I mean, this guy's 1 year in law school. Well, guess what? He passes the bar. So boom, he is a lawyer, and he's been he was thrown out of high school. He spent 1 year in college and law school, and now he was a big-time hotshot lawyer. So as a lawyer, he really made a name for himself as the people's person. You know, he was out there helping everybody and really speaking and really just pushing himself out there, trying to make his name be synonymous with that of someone who helps others, as someone that cares about other people, that cares what people think. That cares for the poor guy, that doesn't want big business, and he doesn't agree with all this kinds of stuff, and he's totally against greed and all these other kind of things. And that's how he is, you know, representing himself to the people of Louisiana. Well, he decides to run for governorship. So he loses his first term because, obviously he's young, but he keeps doing what he's doing. He keeps pushing himself out there. He keeps making himself, more of a people's person, and people start to really like him. They're like, hey, he's a great guy. He's awesome. Huey Long, he's for us. Because the people in Louisiana were suffering. They were not doing very well. The Depression was starting to loom. People were losing their jobs. Farms with the Dust Bowl and all that kind of stuff with the soil. It was affecting all kinds of things, including, how we were growing and our crops. So everybody was kind of really being affected by the situation that was going on in the United States. So Huey Long kind of rode that wave all the way to the governor's mansion. And by that I mean is that he played a little bit upon their fears, and he would kind of get them all scared and then paint himself to be the only way that they would get out of this. This was the only way that they would find some sort of survival and they would prosper only if he were the governor. So his second time running for governor, he won. Okay, and then when he won, people were elated. The people of Louisiana were just thrilled. They said, okay, finally we've got somebody in office that's going to speak for us. It's going to be for the poor guy. Well, yes, he did. He did speak for them quite a bit. He had a lot of campaign promises and a lot of things that he actually did do for Louisiana that were very, very good. One of the things that he did is that he expanded public education. He made it so that everybody in Louisiana, whether or not you were poor or rich or whatever, that your child would have the opportunity to go to school. It used to be that only the really rich kids could do it because, for one, they were needed at home to do whatever, farming or helping out, whatever. And number two, that you were supposed to buy your own child's school textbooks. And most people couldn't afford them. And so the kids were being, asked questions and having tests and all that to do with material on a textbook that they did not have. They did not even have a classroom set. So if the kid just didn't have a textbook, well, you'd have to try and get by without one. So Huey Long made it so that every student would get a free textbook, which was a really big deal because now we had more kids going to school. And Huey was very intelligent in knowing that Louisiana, even though we were an agricultural state, we needed to get the future in the same league as the other states as far as education. That we are going to need educated individuals that are just not, in agriculture. So that was a big thing that he did. Another thing was that he paved a lot of the roads in Louisiana. Now, I know that we all complain, or I did, about driving the streets of New Orleans, the quality of the roads. But imagine that it was so much worse when the roads weren't paved. For one thing, it constantly rained, so it was always muddy. It was hard to get around. You couldn't get carts or cars or any type of really transportation material over anything. And so people weren't able to get from A to Z in Louisiana. Well, Huey said that we've got to fix this. So he paved all these roads. Now, people said, oh, he did it because he's such a good guy. He cared about the people. He wanted to make sure that they could get from place to place. But no, Huey wanted to make sure, they can get to places like the polling box and vote for him. So that's the reason that it was done. Now, but he still did it, you know what I mean? So it was still a big deal for the people of Louisiana. But his ulterior motive was not so that the people of Louisiana could travel and get the goods and supplies that they needed. It was so that they could get to the polling box and vote him back in. So Huey's whole campaign was all for helping people. It was to spread the message of, equality and neighbor helping neighbor and things like that. And once he became governor, he really kind of played upon that. He built upon it. He didn't stop. Like when some people become, into political office, they're like, okay, I'm in here now, so now I'm going to just now I'm going to do what I really want to do. But Huey Long, like I said, was always single-minded. He always wanted to become president. So he started to think about the Senate. So because that's the natural progression, usually. So he wanted to be a governor of Louisiana, be a senator for Louisiana, and then run for president. In fact, like a lot of our presidents were first senators. President Obama was first a senator. I think George Bush was a governor. There's a lot of senators that have become president. Donald Trump was a businessman. I can't remember. Clinton was the governor. I don't know. But there are. I promise you, there's lots of them. And even when you do see like a political campaign rally, when we start doing the presidential elections, I guess in 2008, no, 20. 2020. Thank you. Bell's right over there. We're gonna see a lot of senators running for president. We did last time too. So he decided he wanted to run for Senate. Now this was a problem because he was only the governor for 2 years for now. And so he's already thinking of running for Senate and leaving behind the governorship of Louisiana and moving over to Washington. So before he was, he was obviously, the people of Louisiana were crazy about him. They thought he was great. Most of the people, most of them, not everybody, just most of them. They voted him in and said, hey, we want this guy to be our senator. Well, there was a problem because Huey Long was still governor. His term for the governorship had not ended once he had already been elected for senator. He was still the governor. So he didn't take his Senate seat immediately. He actually held 2 jobs, which is not legal. They're not supposed to do that. But Huey Long did not care about that. So he went and he was the governor and the senator kind of at the same time. Now, when his 2 years were up and he was actually able to go to Washington and to act as Louisiana's senator, he wanted to make sure that he could still control things in Louisiana. He still wanted to act as the governor, but be be with Congress up in Washington. So he devised a really good plan. He really made sure that his assistant lieutenant governor, the guy right under him, was going to be the governor. Now the guy that was right under him was Huey Long's little puppet. He did anything that Huey Long said. So he really pushed this guy to the people of Louisiana. He basically rigged the election. He had his own police. He had his own type of police force that would force people into voting for Oscar Allen, who was lieutenant governor. They would prevent you from going to the ballot box if you were going to vote against Oscar Allen. They would make sure that you didn't even get there. They were scary people. So if you were against Huey Long, you had a lot of opposition to go and cast your vote. So obviously Oscar Allen, and they called him OK Allen because anything that Huey Long would say, he would say, okay, okay. So he became the governor of Louisiana. But in doing so, Huey Long really was the one who was maintaining the control. So now Huey Long is in the Senate. He's in Washington, D.C., working with all the different senators, but he's really pulling the strings over in Louisiana. This is when things start to really kind of crumble with the Great Depression, and FDR comes out with his New Deal. Now, Huey Long says, oh, well, this New Deal is just junk. He's terrible. I have a better idea. And if you elect me, Huey Long, to the presidency, I can fix everything in this country. And of course, people in Louisiana were like, Huey Long's wonderful. You guys, you got to vote for him. And he became super popular. He was getting on the radio. And this is like when the radio was really just kind of coming around. And then he would appear on TV, not TV, excuse me. Like in the movies, how they would run, they didn't run movie previews, basically. They ran the news. So he was actually being filmed and presented all over the country. He was like a mass market politician. Huey Long was the first politician in Louisiana to be massive marketed around the United States, where everyone knew his name, where his name was synonymous with just, politics and prosperity and hope and change and things like that. Well, obviously, this started to make Franklin Roosevelt very scared, because never before had there been such a strong adversary to FDR's presidency. Before it was like, whatever, you want to run against me? Good job. Good luck. And they would lose. But Huey Long was a real threat. So FDR had Huey Long investigated. He said, this guy is corrupt. I know he's dirty. I know he is. Well, FDR, they're all dirty. Politicians have all got, there's always something. So, of course, There was lots of dirt on Huey Long. But the people that were voting to impeach him, because they were trying to throw him out, get him out of the Senate, they couldn't find enough evidence because they were all paid off by Huey Long. He found out who was investigating him and who would be the voting, people against him, and he paid them all with lots and lots of money to vote so that he could stay in office, and that Franklin Roosevelt's little concerns would just be thrown away. So Huey Long started out with his Share the Wealth plan. Now, this is something that we're going to talk a lot more in class about, so I'm not going to go over it a lot in here. So the Share the Wealth plan was basically where Huey Long said that people could only earn so much. Like, they could not earn above $1 million. They could not. It was capped. It didn't matter what they did. It didn't matter how successful they were or how much money they had coming in from trust funds or other kinds of things. $1 million was the cap. And he would make it so that every person would get a $5,000 annual salary, no matter what. Everybody. And he would do that by capping the wealth of the very wealthy, and then taking that excess, like anything they made over that, and taxing it and spreading it out amongst the people of America. And that was called Share Our Wealth. Well, a lot of people were like, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Especially in today, if something like that came around, people were like, socialism, that's not American. But in that time period that Huey Long was doing the Share the Wealth, the majority of America was very, very poor. This is the time of the Depression where people were struggling and living in cars and tents and trying to find work. So this was very appealing to them because they didn't have 2 cents to rub together. And now here comes this guy that's saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that you get $5,000 a year. I'm going to make sure that your kid has a free education. I'm going to make sure that you have vacation time. I'm going to make sure that you have free hospital care and roads and service and things like that. I'm going to take care of you. I hear your problem. I hear your plight. So, of course, I have to switch how I'm sitting because my leg is hurting. A lot of people liked him, and this really scared the crud out of FDR because for the first time, he was being really threatened by an adversary. Now, before Huey Long, let me go back a little bit. So Huey Long announces he's going to run for president. And he said, I'm going to run for president. I'm going to run on the Democratic ticket, which is the same ticket that FDR was on. So if Huey Long ran on the Democratic ticket and he won the party's nomination, then FDR was out. Couldn't do it. So, he was very, very, very frightened, FDR. But 3 months or 2 months, it was very shortly after he announced his run for the presidency, that Huey Long was assassinated, that he was killed by a doctor, a prominent doctor in Louisiana. He was shot. He wasn't killed instantly. He was shot, and then he died in the hospital due to complications of the gunshot wound. So there's a huge conspiracy theory, as you can imagine, and you know how I feel about conspiracy theories, but one does have a little bit of a kind of a meat behind it, and people saying, well, FDR was very, very scared about Huey Long running for president. Maybe he was behind something. Who knows? We have a lot, conspiracy theories everywhere, and that they just pop up all the time. So, but there is no proof. People saw this doctor, Carl Weiss, shoot Huey Long. The people at the hospital treated him and knew what was going on. But there were still some, and there still are some, that say that Huey Long was targeted by FDR, and this is a whole part of a plan. It's that. So by Huey Long dying, it kind of made him to some type of godlike figure in Louisiana. And people were mourning and crying and just been carrying on because to them, they saw Huey as their savior, the one that was really good at listening and help them and be there for them and was speaking on their behalf. And it was pandemonium. So when Louisiana was told, hey, you can pick a statue for Statuary Hall, it was almost unanimous in the selection of Huey Long. See you later.
According to the tables which we have assembled, it is our estimate that 4% of the American people own 85% of the wealth of America. and that over 70% of the people of America don't own enough to pay the debts that they owe. How many men ever went to a barbecue and would let one man take off the table what's intended for 9/10 of the people to eat? The only way you'll ever be able to feed the balance of the people is to make that man come back and bring back some of that grub he ain't got no business with. Now, how are you going to feed the balance of the people? What's Morgan and Baruch and Rockefeller and Mellon going to do with all that grub? They can't eat it. They can't wear the clothes. They can't live in the house. Give them a yacht. Give them a palace. Send them to Reno and give them a new wife when they want it. If that's what they want. But when they've got everything on the God's living earth that they can eat and they can wear and they can live in, and all that their children can live in and wear and eat and all their children's children can use, then we got to call Mr. Morgan and Mr. Mellon and Mr. Rockefeller back and say, come back here. Put that stuff back on this table here that you took away from here, that you don't need. Leave something else for the American people to consume. And that's the program. We're not going to destroy the Gulf Refining Company. We're not going to destroy the Standard Oil Company. But we're going to say that the limit of any one man's stock ownership in the Standard Oil Company is from $3 to $5 million to that individual, and that the balance of the people of America own the balance of what the Standard Oil Company is worth. All right. Then, we start from the bottom, that the 25 or more million American families shall have a homestead, a home, and the comforts of a home, including an automobile and a radio, the things it takes in that house to live on. We say to America, 125 million, none shall be too big, none shall be too poor, none shall work too much, none shall be idle. No luxurious mansions empty, none walking the streets, none impoverished, none in pestilence, none in want, but in the land blessed by the smile of the Creator, with everything to be consumed, to be eaten, to be worn, that America will become a land sharing the fruits of the land, not for the favored few, not to satisfy greed, but that all may live in a land in which the Lord has provided an abundance sufficient for the luxury and convenience of the people in general, I think.
I'm at Walmart, and there are no jelly beans. There's none. There are absolutely no jelly beans. That's where they should be, and it's empty. So I don't know what to do. I'm really sad. I'm about to go tell someone that this is inexcusable. There are nothing. There are no jelly beans anywhere. I'm gonna be stuck getting all of these. This is jelly bean problem. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how terrible I am at shuffling cards. You don't believe me. I may have explained this once before. I'm going to show you how horrible I am. You just, okay, here we go.
It's alright, I touched your foot sweat.
Oh, it sounds so terrible! Valerie, will you shuffle these cards for me? Somebody shuffle. And I can't even shuffle the smallest little bit.
Put them in a fridge in the garage.
I don't know. What am I doing wrong?
So you do this, then you put 2 fingers here and your thumb here.
Okay.
Like this.
Wait, what am I doing with my finger? What? Oh, okay. Oh!
And then you go.
I'm so horrible.
Then you do this. Well, not like that.
All
And
right.
then you push them down.
What? Okay.
And Here, shuffle.
What?
You
What
have
am
to
I
practice.
doing?
You have to practice.
I'm practiced for 30 years. I'm still terrible
Obviously
at it.
not. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I have. I'm never able to do it.
So you do this.
All right.
Wait, is hot stuff bad too?
Oh, wait. I kind of did it, but I had this
Yeah,
stop.
keep doing it, keep
this,
doing it.
but they were one's
Pick
up.
up your,
Yeah,
Because they have to be facing
No,
down.
they're both
Yeah.
this. You see how they're?
Yeah, because they both have to be facing down when you do
I know, but I was doing them in the wrong way. Like one was going one way, and the other one was going another way.
this.
Just like cold stuff, honey.
All right. Watch this. I'm the master, okay? Why do I have so
You're
many
stopping
going down at one
Because
time?
you have to.
My fingers.
Sliding your thumbs.
I cannot do that.
Ah.
And I'm double digited in my thumbs.
Double digited.
Yeah, you want to see? Look,
I don't
can
want-
you do this? Look at this. You see how my thumb does that? Look at that.
My thumb does this. Can you pop your thumb out of the socket?
Look at this.
Can
Isn't
you
this
pop
weird?
your thumb out of the socket?
Does this look like? Doesn't it remind me like a shrimp or something?
No.
Can you
It
pop
does.
your thumb out of your socket?
Oh, I can do this.
Does it hurt when I push the